covered by the Chargers. Touchdown, UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, LA? This is Ryan Dyrud with the LA Football Podcast, and support for LAFB is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. Guys, I know a lot of you skip past these ads or just ignore them, but this is one that will actually benefit you every single time you use this product. The worst thing you can do is get nicks, cuts, scrapes, gashes, anything to your southern region down below. It's painful. It's gross. You don't want it. So that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months, that's a year and a half, perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created and just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. And even better, you get 20% off and free shipping with the code LAFB at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code LAFB. I promise you, your balls will thank you. Los Angeles, what's going on? Hope everyone has a great week thus far. Really pumped about today's show on the LA Football Podcast. You can find us on the Believe Podcast Network, on the LA Football Network, LAFB.com. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, also on YouTube, all at LAFB Network. Frosty Rucker, my co-host in the house on the Zoom call. What's going on, man?
I'm good, Ryan. Thanks for having me. LA, what's up? I hope you guys are up and at it. I hope the weather's getting a little bit better, and I hope your spirits are high. We do have a great show, like Ryan just alluded to. A lot of great guys, a lot of knowledgeable when it comes to Charger sports, and I can't wait to get this one kicked off.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a Rams roundtable a couple weeks ago, so now it was time to do a Chargers roundtable. So we welcome in Gilbert Manzano of the OC Register, Fernando Ramirez of Sports Illustrated, Stephen Haglund of the Guilty as Charged podcast, and Dan Wade of Locked On Chargers. Both the latter two also write for the LA Football Network. So it's going to be a good show, Frost. Love to talk football, and I think we went a little longer than our usual show, but it's just because there was just so much to talk about.
Word of the episode is perspectives. There
you go. Yeah, a lot of different perspectives. So I have to say, we talked last episode about high school football. Let us play. And I didn't have it then, but I just got him to notice the hat. My buddy's a coach at Fountain Valley High School down in Orange County. So I'm repping a little Fountain Valley Barons. So let them play, right?
Yeah, you got to let these kids play. Come on, California.
Yeah, so they should be voting. I heard last it was going to be Tuesday. Now I heard that they're pushing it back or something, but hopefully I talked to my buddy, and the hope is a 5-game season where they could start practicing March 1st. That's the fingers crossed plan, all league play. We'll see what happens.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So before we get into our roundtable, show is brought to you by betonline.ag. As you know, if you are a frequenter of the LA Football Podcast, plenty of prop bets. I know football is over, sadly. Send, the tier graphics or whatever you want to do. But still plenty going on. NHL in full swing. I don't know if you guys have been watching hockey, but a lot of great games. The NBA is at it, and we got March Madness coming up. Plus, there's you can bet on reality shows, The Bachelor. You watch The Bachelor, Frost?
I don't know, Ryan. I've seen it a few times. I feel like it's the biggest oxymoron of what you want out of a man versus what you're getting, and it's entertainment. And I guess, for me, I'm not supposed to understand, and for others, maybe they need to. So I'm out of this one.
Yeah, I agree. I embarrassingly say I do watch now. I never used to. As I've mentioned many times on the show, my office is in the family room, so my wife would watch it, and I would just get caught looking up and get sucked into these stupid storylines and drama that is like so scripted and unreal, but it's cheap entertainment. Football for me I love it to death, but it's also work. I'm analyzing, I'm, throughout the games, I'm doing stuff. This is just, I can sit back, have a beer, and literally just laugh at the ridiculousness that's going on that is so unrealistic.
Do you ever watch 90 Day Fiance?
I have, and that's even crazy.
That's the one, right?
So you're into that one.
That's the one. That's my guilty pleasure on television. It's 90 Day Fiance.
Do you feel like that's
all the characters? We've booked cameos from people. I'm going to be meeting a celebrity off 90 Day here pretty soon, so I will be posting it on my social media at The Organic Frost. be ready to be entertained.
No way. I'll be looking for that. Do you think that show's just more realistic, or is it just more entertaining?
It's entertainment. I'm not really laughing at their stories. It's just more so that they're willing to go in there and tell it.
There you go. Yeah, the
Right?
willingness to be vulnerable, I guess. And
exactly. You're letting everyone else critique. There's all these back shows off of it, spin-offs and stuff. So it's entertainment. It's pure entertainment for me. I enjoy it. We enjoy it in my house. Guilty pleasure.
Great. So I'll be on the lookout for that post of yours. But anyway, betonline.ag, you can actually bet on those reality shows. Pick who you think is going to be the next. The Bachelor's going on, but who the girl he's going to pick, you can bet on that. I'm sure there's 90 Day Fiance on there. So betonline.ag, get a 50% welcome bonus when you sign up today. So Frost, let's go ahead and jump into this Chargers roundtable. Great content, a lot of fun stuff. Hope you guys enjoy. And let's hop to it. All right, Chargers fans, like we mentioned in the intro on the LA Football Podcast, we got the Chargers roundtable going on today. Some of the best in the business, the Titans of Twitter, joining us on the Zoom call to talk about Chargers offseason, everything going on. Super excited to dive in and pick these guys' brains. So let me go one by one real quick, introduce them. The great Gilbert Manzano, got the hair flowing, got a few paintings on the wall behind him, writes for the OC Register. What's up, Gilbert? What's going on?
Not too bad, but you forgot to say the best hair here, maybe around the whole Chargers reporters beat. But I appreciate that great intro and calling me Gilbert the Great. I like that.
There you go. Gilbert Grape or Gilbert the Great, one or the other. But speaking of great hair, next to him, writes for Sports Illustrated, does great work, done stuff before covering the Chargers. So he's been with the team a long time. Fernando Ramirez, what's up, man?
Hey, in my contract, it said that I was going to go first with the intro. I did not get introduced first, so I think I might have to head out of here. But when we talk about great sets of hair, it's right here. Deion Sanders mentioned it at last year's Super Bowl. So I'm sorry, Gilbert. I mean, I think you're second place when it comes to that stuff.
I love it. I love it because this feud will never end.
It's bro love. It's bro love.
Always.
That's the thing. Gilbert and I are just bro love always.
Yeah, I love it. And what's great is going from the intro of the hair, and I don't know how this Zoom recording, it's on mine. It's like perfectly. You guys are next to each other, and then below you are these next two guys. So I don't know how it'll show in the recording. We go from hair to beards, because then we got Dan Wade, who writes for Locked On, or not writes, but does the podcast Locked On Chargers, also writes for the LA Football Network, and Stephen Haglin, who writes for the LA Football Network and does the Guilty as Charged podcast. But two phenomenal beards. Dan, though, you're a little trimmed up there. You trimmed it up a little bit.
Yeah, it looks all right now. I mean, the barbershops are all closed. So, I mean, this is all me right here. So you get what you get.
Last time I saw you, though, it was a lot more bushy. So well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Glad you're here. Steven, what's up, man?
Best beard on here. Best beard. We're starting a feud now. You guys got the hair.
No, I'm in this one. Hold on now.
Frost's got a beard too, though. We got the salt and pepper beard.
Yeah, I don't have that yet. Maybe soon.
Well, I think who has the best beard and related to the Chargers is clearly now the new linebackers coach. That thing is fantastic. But I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on here today, Ryan.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys look eerily similar too. You and the linebacker coach. I think was it you or Tyler tweeted out the comparison between you two?
Tyler did. I personally don't see the resemblance, but I appreciate the comparison, and I'm always down to talk beards because I've had my beard for like 10 years and it's been fantastic for me.
Flavor savers.
Yeah.
Flavor saver.
I just got the goatee. I can't.
Man, I've only had this for the since the off season started. And I'm already annoyed of it. I'm like, okay, I think I'm down to go back to baby face.
I'll never go back.
And the worst thing though about a beard is when you're wearing these masks all the time. It's
the masks are so annoying.
Yesterday I was like, oh my, like I kept on scratching and stuff, and
yeah,
Mom's like, what do you have, lice or something? What's going on?
Yeah,
because I kept on scratching.
Just a beard. So
just beard dandruff, man, happens.
Yeah. But thank you all for
now on the beard.
Yeah.
That's
right. Left out, guys. I only have a mustache.
That's okay. It looks good though. Better flavor saver.
Goatee since like 8th grade.
Bro, Pep Hamilton loved your mustache last year. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
There you go. Hey, there you go. There's best mustache title for the Chargers.
There you go.
Yeah.
I just want the attention, guys. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting beard talk, nice hair talk. I'm sorry, guys. Keep going.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm excited to do this. So, Frost, you want to kick off the first question, or do you want me to get it rolling?
Yeah, sure. I want this first question is going to be for Steven. Steven, nice to meet you formally. Thanks for coming on their show. Rookie of the Year, Justin Herbert. What does that award mean for your franchise?
Well, I think it's huge, right? Because, first and foremost, Anthony Lynn and them, they didn't want him to play. They wanted him to sit for a season. And so, the fact that he was able to come in and play effective, like that would have been huge. But the fact that he was able to come in and be the best quarterback of the class, be the rookie of the year, exceed all expectations, I think it opens up a window for the Chargers to contend in the very near future, because they know that they have a stud at quarterback. They know that they have their franchise guy going forward. You look at what the Dolphins are going through right now. There's so much uncertainty around Tua. He might be traded for Deshaun Watson. The Chargers don't have that kind of problem because Justin Herbert has been so effective, exceeded all those expectations. And frankly, it just gives me a lot of confidence that the Chargers are headed in the right direction. And I think most Chargers fans feel the same way.
Same. I feel the same. Ryan and I share the same sentiments about him. He played lights out, got thrown in the fire, and has done nothing but improve week in, week out, battle. And the reward was very rewarding.
Yeah. And dignified, and should have been the one. And I think too, what outside of even just on the football field, it was so huge for, I think, the city of LA and for this organization.
Yeah.
We talk all the time. I know I talk to you guys, and I'm sick of even having to bring it up. I feel like it's such a lazy narrative, the Chargers in LA, and the not enough fans, because I just think it's lazy and not true. But we saw when he won the award, the Santa Monica Pier lit up with the Bolt Up logo and Justin Herbert's billboards all over, and there was like excitement in this town about this team. And now there's a rivalry between the Chargers and the Rams, the race to the Super Bowl, and it's not necessarily even a battle for LA anymore. It's just a race to the Super Bowl. And I think that a lot of that stems from what Justin Herbert's done on the field, and the fact that, like you said, there is no question anymore. It's just, okay, he's the guy now. It's build around him and make that happen. So we'll get more into building around him, draft and free agency stuff. But Gilbert, I want to ask you about this new coaching staff, because they just had their full-on press conference yesterday announcing the remainder of the staff. Coach Staley, and you've been with the team for a while now, so you've seen Anthony Lynn's press conferences and his staff, and what's that like. And I think I've watched both of these ones with Staley, and there's a lot of excitement. He says all the right things. He's super, super smart, very eloquent. Talks to all reporters by name, which I always loved about Sean McVay. So it's awesome to see Staley doing that as well. So I guess just what is the sentiment you've seen with this transition to Staley, and what's the excitement kind of you've seen around, Charger Nation around this new coaching staff?
Yeah, first of all, Brandon calls me Gilberto, which I appreciate. He's rolling his R's, going with my full name there. So, points for the new coach there. And shout out to you, Ryan. You've kind of been on the Brandon Staley train from the start. So you kind of got the, I guess, a credit there for that. But yeah, it's a little different from Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley. Like, you kind of go from like this old school kind of coach, a little older guy, but you kind of maybe I know that they focus on a lot of him being a running back and maybe kind of being a smash mouth kind of style. But towards the end, he was a little more balanced. He passed the ball, pretty often with Justin Herbert, and Phillip Rivers. But with Brandon, you just kind of get this, this kind of this fresh ideas, futuristic kind of ideas, innovative, creative, and it's just kind of pretty exciting for the Chargers to kind of, finally think about analytics and stuff like that. So I think it's I'm very eager to see what he could do with all these new ideas. Like right now, it could be pretty complex. You don't know where he could go, but just to have all those ideas seems pretty just different for the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree, Gilbert. I think with the new energy, an off season that's up in the air because we don't know much what's going on with OTAs and minicamp. But if he gets an OTA minicamp and his philosophy and getting his team thinking analytical, getting his team to think about situational football and being sharp in those aspects, is going to be a good contrast to what happened last year with Coach Lynn. Next question is for Daniel. The Chargers sit at number 13 on the draft order. What's their first pick? What area do they focus on?
I mean, for me, I've been pretty solid in my take. I mean, I think it has to be an offensive lineman. And I know you don't have to, don't like to pigeonhole yourself. You want to be able to say, hey, we took the best player available. But I do think it's almost something for this team. It's like, hey, either turn that pick into an offensive lineman in the draft or turn that pick into Orlando Brown Jr. One way or the other, that capital has to be spent on the offensive line. The last time they took one in the first round, 2013, DJ Fluker. I mean, at the end of the day, you reap what you sow, right? So I think that all of the draft capital they've kind of left on the table as far as trying to build this offensive line has really turned it into what it is now. And not only are the big price free agents that you're bringing in not working out, but the guys you took in the second and third round a few years ago, Dan Feeney, Forrest Lamp, it's hard to say either of those guys would be good enough to come back and feel much better about the offensive line situation. I mean, 32nd in ESPN's, run block metric, 31st in their pass block win rate metric. I mean, whatever you look at with this team, it's hard to find a redeemable quality for them. So as much as you want to be able to take the best player available, and I do think there are other needs, I think that corner is an underlying need that I don't know if enough people are talking about with this team, with two over 30-year-old corners in Casey Hayward Jr. and Chris Harris Jr. And then who's next? Brandon Faison, who's really, inexperienced. I mean, if that's the next best option there, you haven't done a good enough job of bringing in and having a plan for the future at that position, even though I do think those guys can bounce back a little bit. But for me, if Rashawn Slater's there, you run to the podium. I mean, there's a couple of guys there I'd be okay with, even if it's not even offensive tackle. I mean, there's so many needs on this offensive line. If you want to go Elijah Vera Tucker, I understand that. Like if you want to get road clearing inside interior offensive lineman that could play inside or outside, take a chance on just the most talented guy at that position. You will have a place for it because you currently don't even have 5 starters with 3 guys going into unrestricted free agency. But I have a question I want to ask Frosty, just because obviously former NFL player. One of the things in Brandon Staley's press conference, which I'm sure we'll get into, and one of the things he's been really big about so far is those personal relationships, right? Saying he talked to 20 to 25 guys in person already, reached out to almost all of the other guys. And I know you've gone through coaching changes and things like that. So I was just wondering how you felt as a former player about coaches, new coaches coming in, and what it means to a player when they want to actually build a real relationship like that.
I've had 2 situations where new coaches have been involved on when I was on the roster. One was when I had a new defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer. He didn't spend too much time talking to anyone. He didn't really like anyone.
Doesn't seem like Mike Zimmer's thing.
No, he didn't really want to be buddy. He knew there was a job to do. We were last in run defense. We weren't even thinking about stopping the run. Everyone was all hype on rushing the passer. So the first thing he did was, we didn't practice on pass rushing. We practiced on stopping the run. And we went from dead last to first the next season. And then he inquired other things. So on that aspect of being real personal, that wasn't him, but he had a job to do and he leads in that manner. The second time, I was in Cleveland and I had signed a 5-year contract in Cleveland. The ownership got sold, brand new GM, brand new president, brand new head coach, with Chazikski got the head job. Okay.
Yep.
I had a meeting with him. Goes down the line. You're a leader. You've done this. You've done that. You had a great year. I'm glad you're here. I can lean on you. Hours after that conversation, I got released. So I'm kind of in the air.
Sure.
And the situational with coaches change, but I'm a very coachable guy and I do love coaching and all that. But when it comes to a coaching change while I'm on the roster, I'm in the middle.
Yeah,
I get that. I was honestly just curious just to see, because I think there are players. I mean, I think it means more to certain players more than it does others too. If somebody wants to get to know that information, know your wife's name every time, he talks to you and brings something up. So I was just curious.
Yeah, just those situations itself. Other than that, coaching is like another father figure, and I've always looked at it like that, even when I became gray in the beard and I was still in rosters and some of my players thought I was a coach. That's another story, another time for that story too. But besides that, no, coaches are like another father figure. It's a leader. I've always viewed that mentorship and whatnot. So I do embrace coaches that really want to know about you because, again, how I produce on the field dictates his job. We've seen that with Coach Lynn. They don't finish these games, no matter how cool you are, how nice, they got to change it. Right?
100%.
So, it's good to have a working relation in a family atmosphere. It is, though.
Yeah. And for those of you guys that didn't know, that was Frosty's old coaching staff that just won the Super Bowl this year. So hats off to them. And I know Frost was stoked on that, being under BA and all those guys. So, well, Gilbert, I'll ask you this. And I totally agree with Dan, what you were saying about offensive line. I think we're probably all in agreement there. I do want to say just briefly on corner, I agree with you that that's not getting talked about a lot. I think the benefit they have, though, is Brandon Staley's defense, is Ronaldo Hill at defensive coordinator. They can really utilize maybe some yet lesser known corners, lesser maybe talent, if you will, and get the most out of them, like we saw with the Rams, like we saw with the Broncos. So I think they don't have to go necessarily after a big name or use a high draft pick, but they certainly can, and that's not going to be a bad thing. But I think offensive line is certainly the need. So Fernando, turning kind of to free agency for now, I think it's safe to say Tom Telesco hates dead cap money. They're like the one team in the league. They have like $58,000 in dead cap. You look just across the freeway, the Rams are sitting at like 30 million in dead cap. You can call it what you want. Maybe that's great management by Telesco. Maybe that's holding on to mistakes too long because he doesn't want to hurt the bottom line, and he just holds on to players till their contracts run out. Whereas, Les Snead says, "Oh, we didn't like it. Let's just move on, and our owner will pay for it in the end." So whatever your stance is on it, but it seems like that's his MO. And yet, though, we've seen him change a little bit last offseason, signing some big free agents, trading in the draft, both things that he really isn't known to do. So do you think this year we could potentially see a cap casualty, Mike Williams, who would have no dead cap, but he is currently signed for $15 million. Casey Hayward Jr. would have about 2 to 3 dead cap. A few other names on there. Trey Turner, again, no dead cap, but he does have a high contract, and they just traded assets for him. So question to you, do you see any players on the roster right now that we could actually see as a cap casualty to move that currently like 33 million even higher and be one of the richest teams in free agency this year?
Well, to be honest, I think Tom Telesco deserves credit for that. He's always, ever since he came in, I've been around the team since 2013, 14. So ever since he came in, he always talked about the cap. And he wanted to make sure that the cap was in a good place. And look, this year, nobody expected what happened with COVID. And the Chargers are still in a good place, even though COVID hit and the cap's going to go down. They're still in a good place. They have some money. But to answer your question, I do believe that there could be. If there's somebody that the Chargers really covet in free agency that they're like, you know what, we need to go get this guy or that guy, I do believe that the Chargers will not hesitate to cut Casey Hayward or like you said, Trey Turner or something like that. I mean, it just has to be the perfect player to go out and get. The thing is that last year his moves just didn't work for this upcoming season. I mean, if you look at it, Brian Bulaga was hurt probably more than half of the season. Trey Turner was hurt during training camp and then came in, played I think the Chiefs game, and then he got hurt I think up until the Miami game. So there was just a lot of injuries with some of the players that he got. Some of the other guys like Jerry Tillery just haven't lived up to what the Chargers are hoping for. I think it's really going to depend on Brandon Staley. According to the Chargers, Brandon Staley is going to have full say on the players, on the coaches, on everything. And I mean, there was only 2 carryover coaches from Anthony Lynn's staff, which was Gift Smith. So I'm sure Joey Bosa's happy about that. And one of the assistants also got carried over. But it seems like Brandon Staley's in full control of this. I think if Brandon really wants to go get, maybe, I don't know if he's comfortable with Josh Johnson or John Johnson. Sorry. Yeah. I keep on remembering the USD quarterback, Josh Johnson.
XFL, baby.
Yeah,
Wildcats.
I keep on remembering his name, so I get it confused. But if there's somebody he likes and somebody that he feels like he needs to bring in, then I feel like they will end up making some of those cuts. Like Daniel mentioned, I mean, cornerback is a big part of I feel like of Brandon Staley's defense, and I feel like that's not a spot that people are talking about, like Daniel said. I feel like it does need to be talked about. I mean, when you look at the way Tampa Bay controlled Tyreek Hill and all these guys, I was looking at it the other day. I have it right here. All those guys are 24 and younger. The whole secondary for the Tampa Bay, all the 2 starting cornerbacks and the 2 safeties are younger than 24 years old. The only guy that's younger than 24 years old or 24 years old is Derwin James on this Chargers secondary. I mean, obviously, ages and everything, it has to be about speed. But, I mean, last year we kind of saw, and Casey Hayward was injured or seemed to be injured at some points, but he can't keep up with Tyreek Hill. I mean, some of these guys they can't keep up with guys like Tyreek Hill or some of these other guys. So the Chargers are going to need to look to get faster on that defensive side. But I feel like I've told Gilbert before in the past, I feel like it all starts with 97 and 33 when it comes to the Chargers defense. And I feel like they are going to need to get better players around those guys to really solidify. They already got Kenneth Murray, who it seems like he could have in Brandon Staley's defense could end up becoming maybe a star. I wouldn't say a superstar, but could be a star linebacker. And now it's about getting more secondary help for Derwin. So to answer your question, yes, I do believe that. I do think Tom Telesco is going to make some moves here and there to cut and get more cap space for this upcoming season. Because I mean, the last 2 seasons have not been good for him. So I'm sure that seat's getting a little hot as we continue on to his third coaching hire.
Yeah, and I think this Chargers team as constructed even now, and if they make some moves, and maybe this, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think this is a 7-win team that can be a top 5 AFC team in one offseason.
Is it 7-win team?
Well, they were a 7-win team, and they can turn into a top 5 team. Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad.
With 4 consecutive 16-point blown leads too.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't very far away from a 9-7, 10-6 team.
Yeah, so I think
and they blew leads against Tampa Bay, against Kansas City, and against New Orleans, 3 playoff teams, and then a 24-point lead against the Broncos. So those, if you flip those 4 games, they're 11-5 with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and all the injuries they had, and me and Frosty talk all the time. Like everyone talks about injuries as an excuse and next man up, but no, it's not. Like the teams that are in the playoffs were healthy teams. I mean, it's just.
I think the only team that has the excuse of every year of injury is the Chargers, to be honest.
Exactly.
I'd say every playoff team too had a pretty good offensive line going into it.
Yeah.
I mean, Kansas City got decimated along the way, but you look at those playoff teams, I think there's a pretty strong correlation between offensive lines and how good those teams ended up being. Because I mean, the Chargers weren't even close to any of those teams.
Offensive line and defense was the key of these playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's so funny seeing all these quarterbacks like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray torch their offensive lines, and it's like, come play for the Chargers and see what you're made of. You know what I mean? Like,
Good
then
luck.
you'll see how hard it is.
Hey, Ryan, that's a hot take right there.
Right? Or like, how good would Mahomes be behind this offensive line? That's too hot of a take, probably. But Steven, sticking with
9
free
points.
agency. Sticking with free agency. 2 big names that I'm sure Chargers Nation at least will be talking about and want to know about. J.J. Watt just becomes available, gets cut today. For those that didn't know, or not cut, I guess, released per his request. And Patrick Peterson, another big name. I know, Fernando, you just talked a lot about getting youth and getting speed. I think Peterson had a down year at Arizona, but he's still Patrick P. Frosty play with him. I think he's a great player. I think he could come in this Staley system, in my opinion, and have a really good rebound year and probably be a little cheaper than years past because of that down year. So, Steven, do you think guys like that, you can talk about them specifically, or if there are any other big name free agents that you'd want to see them kind of go after?
Well, Fernando mentioned him. I think John Johnson might as well put on a Chargers uniform right now. I think that he's going to be on this team. Brandon Staley has talked about relationships and how important he values, those ties. And John Johnson called plays for him last year, and he's a free agent. And the Chargers, I love Derwin James. He's an amazing player, but he can't stay healthy. And, the fact of the matter is that they need more playmaking safeties to run this kind of scheme. So to me, John Johnson is a no-brainer, especially with Nasir Adderley. His best attribute right now is returning kicks, and that's not really something that you want to see out of a second-round pick. So I think John Johnson is going to be the big name free agent. I think J.J. Watt would make a lot of sense in being a 3-4 defensive end and being able to fill, I'm not going to say call him Aaron Donald, but do some very similar Aaron Donald role and have that same kind of profile. I think that makes a lot of sense. But the Chargers adding somebody that has spent half his career being injured is not really something that makes me feel super comfortable, right? Fernando just talked about all the injuries. And so that would make sense on paper, but I ultimately think that he's going to sign with a contender, maybe go ring chasing down to Tampa or Kansas City or Green Bay. That just seems kind of like what the next phase of his career is. Patrick Peterson, I probably would have him. I would rather have him than Casey Hayward in this kind of scheme because, Casey Hayward going man-to-man coverage 80% of the game really worries me. And I love Casey. He's probably the best cornerback that we've seen in the 2000s for the Chargers. He's been a fantastic player, but he's a zone corner in my opinion. And so having him, go man to man with Tyreek Hill or, whoever the case may be, that worries me a little bit. And so Patrick Peterson, he's on the decline. Like, I think that's pretty clear when you look at his play, but he's faster. He fits the profile more of a man-to-man corner. But I would just rather draft a corner if I'm choosing between two old corners over 30. I would just rather cut Hayward and then draft someone in the second round after addressing the offensive line in the first round.
Interesting. Very interesting the way you perceive, and this isn't a shot at you, Steven, so don't take this, but it's very interesting the way you look at the defensive side of the ball and how you break down man versus zone and what type of player they are. I would say when you're dealing with who's in their division, right? You got Tyreek, you got Waller. These guys are mismatches. So the more so the defensive coordinator can come up and say, we're not going to do man, would probably be better, right? If we watched the Super Bowl and what just happened and how the Kansas City Chiefs were dismantled, yeah, they didn't have 2 tackles. Mahomes is getting paid $200 million. Tough, right? Everyone else was there.
$400 million, yeah.
I personally don't care, right? I don't care. Tough. Everyone has to line up. That's what you dealt with. It is what it is. I want to see the defensive coordinators be challenged more to make the right calls and put their guys in the right 100%. Positions, right?
Casey didn't get enough help last year either. Let's be clear about that. He did not get enough help over the top. You knew what his issue was, and you still failed to fix it as a defensive coordinator. I mean, if the same guy keeps getting beat deep, maybe shade Nazir Adderley over there a little bit. Michael Davis got beat deep maybe once or twice. So I think in that sense, I think Casey Hayward did get let down because, I mean, the completion percentage against him was only 49%. I mean, that's, I think, one of the best numbers in the league. But it was the same thing over and over again, Frosty. So I definitely agree with you there where it's like, hey, at some point you have to adjust. And the Chargers never adjusted. And I think they kind of, hung him out to dry a little bit. Of course, it would probably make the most sense for him to go back to slot, right, where he started his career and did so well with the Green Bay Packers. I think he could thrive in that role, especially with underneath stuff. I thought he did pretty well with that in 2020. But you have Chris Harris Jr. there. So that also leads to its own kind of conundrum. But I do think that Gus Bradley probably didn't do Casey Hayward any favors last year either.
No, he didn't do anyone any kind of favors.
No.
But, Frosty, to get back to your point, like, to me, you brought up Darren Waller. That's why I think signing John Johnson makes that much more sense, because then you could put John Johnson on one side, Derwin James on the other side, and all the great tight ends that are in this division. You don't have to worry about them. You can put Derwin James deep on occasion. You can have him blitzed. You can put John Johnson on Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, Noah Fant, who I think is going to be really freaking good next year. And you can have a very versatile middle of the defense, especially when you add Kenneth Murray, who can run with Tyreek Hill, which you saw in the second game of the season. So to me, like, I want cornerback fixed. I do. But, having the capability of signing John Johnson and locking down the middle of that defense would be just, fascinating to watch Staley go from having the lockdown corner on the outside with Jalen Ramsey to having 3 players who can totally shut down the middle of the field.
I like your analogy on that. I do.
And I don't think there'd be a safety tandem even close to as good as Derwin and John Johnson. Whew. If Derwin's healthy, obviously. But if he's not, then you still have a very strong.
Brandon Staley said he looked amazing yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he does. I mean, he always looks great.
Does he ever not look amazing? I mean, the guy's a freak.
Yeah.
If you put like best athlete, like best physical athlete in the league right now, Derwin's probably in the top 10, like in terms of.
And you know what?
I
feel like people still forget. I still remember this play. It was that 28-29 game against Kansas City. Kansas City was on 3rd and 3, and Derwin was on Travis Kelce, and he comes up, grabs him, and as a rookie, and just throws him on the ground. And I remember like looking around, you're like, okay, like did a rookie corner just do that to Travis Kelce or a rookie safety? And I remember, I think it was Troy Aikman was like, oh my God, I've never seen a rookie safety be able to do that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think Derwin is a mismatch whenever I know we talk about offensive mismatches, but I feel like on defense, Derwin is one of the biggest mismatches there is out there when he's, like you guys said, when healthy.
Derwin getting downhill is such a delight. I mean, it's one of my favorite things of the NFL right now is him. I mean, you think back to the Raiders game a couple of years ago too, where he just flattened Josh Jacobs in the flat, or maybe I think it was another running back, but like him open field tackling is great and all that stuff. But the first game from that season, Fernando, where I think it was DeMarcus Robinson who actually beat him deep. and he like just made up so much ground on the back end. Right now, they can't really afford to have him in the back end they need him in too many places. So I do think John Johnson would let you use Derwin James as more as that Swiss Army knife, because you have faith in the other guy back there, because the safety can only be as versatile as the other guy who's covering the part of the field that he's not going to be at.
Great point. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think it's obviously great pick, and I know the Rams want to keep him, but they just, we talked about their cap a lot in our show, and they're in a different situation than the Chargers are, so it's gonna be hard to bring anyone back. But he'll be one they'll definitely try. But if not, the Chargers absolutely make the most sense. He doesn't even have to move. We talked about
the Saints.
Yeah, that too. So, so Gilbert, sticking with free agency, let's talk about the offense a little bit. The offense, I think, obviously is in great hands. We talked about Justin Herbert. Obviously, the offensive line needs to be addressed. Fernando went into a little bit about the draft, and so did Dan. The receiving core, obviously you have Keenan Allen, who's a superstar, and then you have Mike Williams. So there's question marks if they do bring him back or not. And then after that, it's guys that stepped up and played well, but there's not really still, I think, a true number three. Yes, guys played very well, and guys that we hadn't heard of really coming into the year were rookies, but they played well. Do you think the receivers, the position they addressed in free agency, or do you think they kind of hold pat, maybe see if a guy falls to them late in the draft, or do you think they just like KJ Hill and Joe Reed, who really didn't do much this year, but can develop into more premier players in the future?
Yeah, those two rookies, I'm kind of surprised they didn't do more. I was really surprised when I went back at the end of the year and I saw Joe Reed didn't have a catch all his rookie year.
Crazy.
That's crazy to me.
He texted me when he saw that stat too.
I was just like, what? Like, this is supposed to be your trick play, gadget guy, Debo Samuel kind of guy. Not a single catch. KJ Hill did a little bit more, but he had some drops. He wasn't consistent. He cracked the rotation maybe only because of injuries. But the Chargers made up for it with Jalen Guyton, Tyron Johnson. Like when they lost Tyrell Williams 2 years ago, they didn't have any speed. I know Mike Williams was a great down the field threat, but he's kind of, throw it up 50-50 jump
he's a high guy.
But they didn't have that take the top off the defense. And then you found two guys. You stumbled on two guys, credit to the front office and the coaching staff, Jalen Guyton, who does struggle with some drops here and there. So some big ones. Also the big one in week 17 to cost Herbert the passing record there. I know you guys are all pretty mad about that one. But Tyron Johnson, it seemed every time he was on the field, he was catching 50-yard bombs from Herbert. So, and then you throw in, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, a great pass catcher and running back. You don't really, and we don't know about Hunter Henry, and another weapon, if he comes back, the tight end there. But there are plenty of weapons. But every time I talk about this, this where it is in the priority, standpoint, I know Fernando likes to disagree because he wants Herbert to get all the weapons, all the gadgets. Do not settle. Do not, do not just say, hey, we have this team, they're going to be healthy and roll it out there. I get that point of view. But when you have a really bad offensive line, you have some holes in the secondary, like we're talking about the cornerback position. You're facing Patrick Mahomes twice a year. Maybe Deshaun Watson with the Raiders. I don't know. We'll leave that one for another day. Or the Broncos. Or I don't know. Forget. I know it could be a very deep division. So you need a young cornerbacks. But I do kind of agree with Fernando's point. You cannot settle and just think, these guys are going to be around forever. Keenan Allen is great. But you want to keep finding that next Keenan Allen and kind of have that, that development there. But I think for right now, I think they're set. Maybe don't throw a bunch of money at wide receivers because you do have some talent there, but you got to focus on the offensive line. You got to fix that. You got to maybe pick your first 3 picks in the NFL draft might have to be an offensive lineman, and then, buy one in free agency. So just take care of that right there. But they do have some holes, and I am very curious to see what they do with the secondary. And just going back and kind of listening to you guys talk about the secondary, it's just crazy to me that a year ago, people were talking about this being possibly the best secondary in the NFL. Derwin James, Chris Harris Jr., Casey Hayward, the list goes on. And now we're talking about this being a weakness for the Chargers. So they do have other priorities besides the wideout position. But I'm just very intrigued to see, I'm just sitting back and watching. I'm not even throwing out names because everything's going to be so different this offseason because you have a new head coach, and then you still have the same GM who's kind of drafted all these guys. So are they going to clash? Is Southwest going to say, hey, I drafted Jared Tillery, but Staley's like, hey, Tillery's not that good. Can I bring in another guy? Or Nas Adderley, he's not that good, Tom. I know you drafted him in the second round. Can I bring another guy?
Time to take out the dead cap, Tom.
Yeah, and he has the money for that too. He can make it work. But I just want to see that clash between Tom and Brandon. And my guy and this guy. So I really don't know what's gonna happen, but they could be on the same page. And maybe Brandon's like, hey, I like Jerry, I like Nas, and other guys he's drafted. But I know I'm kind of getting long-winded, but I was kind of sitting back and watching you guys kind of talk about all these weaknesses for the team, and there are a good amount because I know you have Justin Herbert. You look at the quarterback position, you want to say this team is really good, but you really look at it, it's a very top-heavy roster with Joey Bosa, Keenan, and Herbert. But the rest it needs a lot of work. I still see this team at 7-9 because obviously we haven't gone to the full offseason and seeing what's gonna pan out. But I don't think this team is that close yet. I know Herbert, is the biggest piece you could have, the foundation to kind of being a contender. But I just feel like Brandon Staley and Tom have a lot of work to do. But they're right there with the blue chip guys, the cornerstone pieces, and you have them locked in: Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen. But going back to the beginning, I don't think wide receiver is a priority. But you don't want to settle again. It's a very unique situation for the Chargers. You want to help Herbert at the same time, but you got to build this team through the offensive line in the trenches, and even defensive line is kind of shorthanded. It's Joey Bosa and who else? Melvin Ingram might not come back. Wusu, we've seen him for many years, but he hasn't really been to his potential. So we'll see with that. But build the offensive line, and then you kind of start getting greedy and you get more wide receivers and things like that to kind of end my rant.
My name was slandered. Can I respond to that
Go ahead.
or no?
Take the mic.
Man, I just remember, and I mean, like I said, I'm from San Diego, so I just remember the years where Phillip at some points wouldn't have any receivers. Like Vincent Jackson, the year that he held out, Phillip had no receivers, and he was still able to make it work. So I'm like, dude, you can't stay like you have to keep on giving this kid weapons. You have to get faster on offense as well. I mean, Keenan's good. He's fast and everything, but you need to get more speed on this offense. I'm not saying go complete Kansas City, but at least a speedy receiver. Maybe Joe, like Gilbert said, Joe Reed could be that guy. Maybe there's a guy on the roster. Tyron Johnson's very good. I'm just saying, like, you just can't say, okay, these are the receivers. That's it. We drafted Joe Reed. We drafted KJ Hill. They're going to stay here. No, you have to look at it and say, hey, is this the best thing moving forward to have a KJ Hill, to have Joe Reed? Or should we look elsewhere and get something else? Because the thing is that sometimes these guys and this organization has gotten complacent in the past, and that's why you have the bad offensive line. That's why you have the receivers that can't make plays. And so, and that's the thing. That's the only reason why I tell Gilbert they need to make sure that they keep on building. But I think Gilbert and I talked about this before. That offensive line really does need a lot of work. I mean, you're listening to Deshaun Watson, like you guys said, and Russell Wilson taking all these hits. I think Russell Wilson is only 100 hits or 100 sacks behind Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's played a lot more years for career than Tom Brady has. So, or Russell Wilson's played less. So, excuse me. I feel like they really need to build this offensive line, and you have to build it through the draft. No more, let's throw in Alejandro Villanueva. I mean, and no slander, but he's 38 years old. You need younger pieces at that offensive line.
No, I do agree with Fernando here because I think my biggest criticism of Tom Telesco is that he hasn't been proactive. It's always like, okay, I have a problem linebacker, I'll sign Thomas Davis. I have a problem at center, I'll sign Mike Pouncey. And they have 9 draft picks this year.
Well, come on, bro. Let's be Mike Pouncey. All the respect, love. You retired.
Yes, happy retirement and all that stuff. But like this is the problem, right? Like you sign these veteran band-aids, and then you don't address depth behind them, and that bit them in the ass so hard this last year because Trey Pipkins was the first offensive lineman off the bench, and then they went through 5 injuries at right guard, and it was like, well, what do we do? Okay, here's another practice squad player. And so I think they could be proactive at receiver in the draft. I hate the idea of adding a free agent receiver. Like I cannot stand that idea. So if they wanted to use one of those third round picks, well, Tyrell Williams is fine because he would be cheap and he knows like the team at least. But I think I've been spending all week on the receivers in the draft class this year. It's a really deep class. There's not somebody that I would be clamoring to take at number 13 overall. But if they spend a third round pick, they have that compensatory pick for Philip Rivers. If they use that on a receiver, I would be okay with that because that's a good place to find somebody that they need. And I'm still pissed that Joe Reed didn't get anything, man. Like after that Jacksonville game, I was so excited. But I'm excited to see what he can do in year 2 if he gets the opportunity. But I do think that receiver is something that they need to be proactive about because, like you said, Keenan's getting older. Mike Williams might not be on the team next year. So you can't keep relying on Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton. I know they're great stories, but those two guys should not be, your third and fourth best receivers. They just shouldn't.
Well, we keep talking about the division quarterbacks keeping up with Mahomes, and if Watson comes, you're currently Carr and Locke. But the division's also really been proactive about receivers. Broncos spending a first and second on Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, getting Noah Fant. Like they're building a super young receiving core. Cortland Sutton, the Raiders drafted Henry Ruggs. So not saying everyone has to be the same, but the Chargers are the one team that really haven't done anything at receiver in their division even.
Yeah, that's for sure too. But I would also add too, I mean, what if I told you the Chargers have drafted one offensive lineman in the last 2 seasons, and that man's name is Trey Pipkins? I mean, I think there's a philosophy thing here that is just, him and Brandon Staley are going to have to get on the same page because, some people's philosophy is build in the trenches, right? And then other people, you're getting fancy skill players like Joey Bosa, Derwin James. I'm not going to argue with those picks, but at the same time, look what it's brought you. You can only fix it with so many Band-Aids, like Steven said. And I think with the wide receivers, it's hard for people who've covered the Chargers a long time, like Fernando was talking about, because yes, Phillip Rivers at one point was throwing to Seyi Ejiro-Tutu. He was throwing to Legadou Nane, right? I mean, he made it work with a lot of guys. And I think Justin Herbert showed that he can elevate those guys around him. He can get productivity out of Donald Parham out of the XFL. He can get guys like Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton, to become solidified, third receivers with that team. Both of them played pretty good roles for the Chargers. I think, Tyron Johnson is a guy that reminds me of Tyrell Williams just in the deep threat part of it. But I think he's honestly even a better route runner than Tyrell Williams was early on in his career. So I like him as a piece. But yes, especially those guys you took late in the draft, a 5th round pick in Joe Reed, a 7th round pick in KJ Hill. That can't stop you from going and attacking that position and trying to find better options there. You can't just be content with that. If the opportunity comes for you to bring somebody in, I think you have to do it. But bringing in free agent wide receivers, do we want Travis Benjamin, right? He was the number 1 guy in that class, and it's not to slander him, but it's just to say that you're not always going to find somebody that fits correctly in your offense just because he performed well with another team. So I think you have to look into all those things, as well as the cost benefit of being able to find a Demetric Felton later on, somebody that can be a playmaker and fill multiple roles for your team, as opposed to spending, $20 million on Chris Godwin, which we know isn't going to happen. But I do think that when you're prioritizing, it's time for Tom Telesco to not prioritize the fancy, gadget guys and prioritize the big guys in the middle and protect this asset. Look at Joe Burrow, right? How did his season end last year, right? Look at Russell Wilson. Look at Andrew Luck. If you can learn one thing, if Tom Telesco should know one thing from his time with the Colts, is, hey, you had a prodigal guy in Andrew Luck and you failed year over year to protect him. And then by the time you finally got that good offensive line for Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers, Andrew Luck already hung it up, right? So it's like, protect it. You have, a top 5 asset in the league right now, a quarterback that just had the best rookie season ever on a rookie contract. Your window is now to build this roster, and it starts in the trenches for me. And I think that's the biggest thing that Tom Telesco has to fix, the biggest hole in his general manager, career so far.
I'll chime in on that. I feel like Tom needs to be more like John Schneider with the Seahawks. When Pete Carroll had his first season there, he had over 200 transactions. It was a revolving door to get the product that they want. Does Tom believe in Brandon enough that he's going to give him a chance to rewrite this whole script of a team and then let him play it out? The only thing I can say to that, through those 200 transactions that the Seahawks had, they didn't protect Russell enough. You just talked about the sacks, right? They had, what was this guy's name? He plays for the Cardinals now. He's a right guard. Sweezy. J.R.
Sweezy.
Oh,
they had DJ Fluker.
I had both those guys. I had I won't even get into it. But playing versus both those guys. Sweezy's a converted defensive lineman to play guard. Mm-hmm. Like out of all the people in the world, you got a guy to protect Russell Wilson. It worked for a little while, but then at the end of the day, what starts happening? Russell's getting hit and hit and hit. They went after all these other people. He kept getting hit. You brought up Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, on one hand, could have been rookie of the year if he stayed upright, just because he was the number one pick. They would have gave it over our guy. They were just, it was dimed up for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets hurt, magnifying glass. The big uglies up front. What are you doing to protect these guys? So I feel like it's Tom's time. If he has time on the clock on his contract, if he's not going to get re-up, to make it a revolving door. What Brandon says behind, the screen. I want to see if he was on Hard Knocks right now. They got to do another round of Hard Knocks. What is his message? Is
That's
he telling
Tom's
guys
biggest fear, by the way.
You're right. Is he going in there telling guys about the culture that he's trying to change there, right? The type of toughness and his players he wants. If you're not going to be tough, get the hell out of here. And this question goes out to Fernie, just because he wanted to speak up. This question goes out to Fernie. Who do you think is going to be the one that gets cut that no one's expecting?
Gilbert's looking right at me.
I know.
And I know he's doing it.
So am I.
I think Trey Turner is going to end up getting. I think Trey Turner is going to be the one. 11.5 million. The one guy that I think we need to really look at is Jerry Tillery too. I think I know he's a first round pick, and I know people think he improved last year, but I just don't see where he kind of fits in this system in Brandon Staley's defense. But I just think going back to Trey Turner, I just feel like he wasn't the right fit for them at right guard. I don't want to say he came in. I don't know. I just feel like he wasn't a good fit for them. I feel like his cap hit is enough to where the Chargers are like, we could probably get 2 players or maybe a better player, an upgrade at his position. I don't know if the Chargers are going to go after Brandon Sheriff or if they're going to go after Joe Thuney from New England. But I just feel like Trey Turner will be the guy that gets cut. I do think they're going to have to look at guys like you guys said, Nasir Adderley, Jerry Tillery. I mean, it's like you said, Frosty, like, yeah, Tom and Gilbert said it too. Tom Telesco drafted these guys. I understand. But you need to make changes on this team. I mean, you can't have the same mentality that you had with Anthony Lynn. That's the reason why you fired Anthony Lynn, because you want a new mentality. So just because Jerry Tillery would be a cap hit or one of these guys, you have to be able to make decisions and be like, you know what? Okay, yeah, I was a guy I didn't hit on. Okay, we have to move on. You have to do what's best for the team. And that's the thing. I feel like sometimes some general managers don't like to do that. And they're like, no, this guy's going to shine. Watch. This guy's going to shine. And they just end up not shining. So I just feel like I think Brandon Staley, and I mean, I remember Darius Swinton, the special teams coordinator, said that before his interview with the Chargers, he had looked at every single special teams play. God bless him for that, because that must have been a disaster having to watch that whole special teams play from last year. But these guys, it seems like the guys that the Chargers hired are prepared. Joe Lombardi sounded prepared. Ronaldo Hill, who, by the way, he's a Todd Bowles guy. So, hey, maybe the Chargers got a really good hire with that guy. But I just feel like they have a roster and they have guys that are coming from winning systems. So I feel like that's the thing. They've done everything right. Now will Tom Telesco, in a sense, be like you said, will he let Brandon Staley coach his team and say, you know what, you do you, tell me what you need? Because that's literally not literally what the general manager is there for, but I feel like Brandon needs to coach this team. And if he doesn't want certain players, then I'm sorry, Tom, you're going to have to cut these guys and let Brandon figure it out. So that's just my 2 cents. But I truly do think that Tom needs to let him figure out who his team is, who his offense is, who his defense, and who his special teams is, if they're going to succeed. Because no offense, but these last 8 years, the Tom Telesco project hasn't worked. Yes, they've been to the playoffs twice, and then both of your head coach, and Tom didn't like when I mentioned this, but both of your head coaches had 2 successful years and then 2 terrible years. Yep. He said there's no correlation, but hey, there has to be something going on that your first 2 years you're successful, the next 2 it just all the dumpster fire gets lit. So I mean, there has to be something. There has to be one one variable, and there is one, but we won't get into that right now. But yeah, no, I definitely think that Tom needs to let Brandon coach this team and let him form his squad.
Well, and I want to go back to something that Frosty said too about the revolving door part of it. I think one of the biggest issues we've seen with the Chargers is an inability to see a player on the field struggling and not making the change, right? I mean, we've only really seen changes to starters be made due to injuries. So really what it should be is, hey, left guard center with Dan Feeney, and we saw him struggle year after year after year. And I know he has a mullet, and I know he's Justin Herbert's best friend. At the same time, I mean, those can't be the things, right? I mean, you have to, if you see someone struggling, replace him, give someone else a shot at it. And we just didn't see that enough under Anthony Lynn. I mean, we've seen so many players struggle, and then we don't know what's behind him because we're not seeing it. At a certain point, you have to be putting the best guys in there. The other thing is too, know your roster, right? I mean, how many times under Anthony Lynn did we see 3rd and 1 bow up? That's not your roster, man. I mean, you're not the overly physical roster. You have the worst run blocking roster in the NFL, yet we get into these scenarios over and over again where you think you're just going to outmuscle the team in front of you, even though it hasn't worked, right? So, I mean, I think that's the other thing. And I think the thing you have to be hopeful about with Brandon Staley is, hey, Jerry Tillery and Nazir Adderley, both those guys have guaranteed contracts. The chances of cutting them and taking on that dead cap might not be likely. You have to hope at this point, hey, maybe Brandon Staley tries Nazir Adderley at corner. Maybe Jerry Tillery, he finds a spot for him on that defensive line where he can just become a disruptor and have one goal to get in the backfield and just try to, help other people make plays, because that is something Brandon Staley has been good at, funneling plays to certain guys. So I think if they can cover up those weaknesses and also know the personnel that they have and call those plays accordingly, I think it could help, tremendously.
Yeah.
I'm not calling for him to like cut these guys or what. I'm just saying, like, if he feels like neither of those guys is going to fit his system, I mean, they're going to have
and they shouldn't be starting just because they're a 1st and a 2nd round pick, right? I mean, I think that's the other thing too, is just, hey, just because you spent that draft capital on these guys doesn't mean the guys behind him shouldn't get a shot. I mean, I remember Jalen Watkins came in a couple of years ago and started playing really well, but he was only in there due to injuries. And it's like, wait, this guy's been on the bench while these other guys have been struggling. He gets in, he shines, and now he's back to the bench when that guy comes back from injury. It just doesn't make sense. If you go out there and you show what you got, I mean, Scott Questenberry is a great example. I mean, that guy came in, filled in for Mike Pouncey because of injuries. We have not seen him since,
And he
right?
played well.
You can't tell me that these guys who are grading out as the worst, guards, centers in the league are so good that they can't be, passed up by these guys who are, lesser draft picks, but have shown on the field at the NFL level that they've played well. Like, how can you have offensive linemen sitting on your bench that actually have had success while the guys you have out there continue to struggle? And I think that'll be a big, kind of rubber meets the road moment for this team. These guys that have kind of had these starting spots not handed to them. I mean, these guys grind, these guys go through it to get these spots, but at the same time, productivity is the most important thing. If it's not working, see if the next guy can do it.
Well, the funniest thing there is that Cole Toner was the 6th guy to get reps at right guard, and he was the best one all year. Like, it wasn't even close.
After Ryan Groy, I mean, had numerous chances. Yeah, I mean, there's been no consistency there.
And here's
guys, with Brandon Staley, he keeps saying he's gonna build off players' strengths. So I think with him, he's gonna see what guys do well and find the role. I feel like with the other coaching regime, the roles were already carved in. You plug and play. If you don't fit that role, get out of the team. But with this coaching staff, it seems like, okay, you do that well, this well, let's find the role, let's mix it in, and just kind of get good rotation going. So I think with this coaching staff, you're gonna see guys who have, maybe they're a specialist, they have something they do pretty well. But I think this this scheme, especially on defense, is gonna be so complex, with disguises and just moving all around. I think you're going to find a lot of guys being in the rotation because you want to get those player strengths all in the field at the same time.
But I think he's going to change our rules too, so we better be careful and we better be killing it this year, because if not, he's going to change our rules too.
Yeah, probably. And here's the exciting thing, guys, and last thing I'll say is, when you look at Brandon Staley, because Anthony Lynn, Frosty and I were some of the few probably that were still like supportive of Lynn, and we just love the guy, but he was loyal to a fault. I know it's a cliche thing, but he was so loyal, and that's probably why he was fired. I mean, even though all the conversation about how he wanted to keep Tyrod Taylor as a starter, and as all you guys mentioned, playing guys just because they were the incumbents or they were the 1st round picks. Yeah.
Do you think that was Anthony Lynn now that we look at it, or is that Tom?
I don't
could
know
have
if
been
you
Gus too, right?
I don't know.
Gus
I don't
has
know
to
if you
take some
saw.
blame.
I don't know if you saw what he said in Detroit a couple of days ago. He said, "If I have a rookie quarterback, I'm going to sit him the whole season." So, I
So
don't know.
frustrating, man.
I
Like
don't
you call
know.
him loyal, you can call him loyal, but that's stubbornness to me. Like you just saw how valuable game reps for Justin Herbert were, and you're still not changing the way that you think. Like if there's a reason why Anthony Newton was fired, it's because he's stubborn. Like you can call him loyal all you want, but he's stubborn
George
and he's
Stewart.
gonna, yeah, exactly. Like he sticks to his guns, and that's great if it works, but it clearly doesn't work. And like the constant pounding of Kalen Ballage up the middle or Joshua Kelly up the middle, it's like, dude, adapt the offense. What are you doing here? And so I hate to talk ill about somebody who's not on the Chargers anymore, but Anthony Lynn did this to himself, man. And he said it wasn't his decision. It was his decision. Like he refused to adapt. He refused to learn with his young quarterback. And that's why he's fired.
Well, and let's not pretend he wasn't 2 wins away though from being 9-7, 35,
Yeah.
29 in 4 seasons, and probably still has a job.
The players loved him.
I mean, he
and
didn't
you saw-
lose that locker room.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
No. I think Gilbert and I can both. I don't think he ever lost the locker room. You saw it with Keenan Allen and some of these guys posting after the season, thanking him for everything and saying that he really did help them. Anthony Lynn was a great guy. It's just, and he's a great human being.
Sometimes that's not enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. So, so honestly, it was just one of those things where you're like, dude, like you had, like, I know you probably. They had to have known. He had to have known that he had something like that in his like in Justin Herbert. It's just, I mean, when Gilbert and I remember in training camp, like we would see, and Justin would struggle here and there, but then he'd make really good plays. It wasn't, I mean, I was surprised when I saw him against Tampa. Tampa was the game that really surprised me because I didn't see that in training camp. I didn't see that long ball. I didn't see any of that. I was just like, oh, okay, like wow, because like there was a practice, and I remember Gilbert and I laughed about it, where Easton Stick was the best quarterback on the field.
Oh,
and I was like, no, I'm serious. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's just the dog days of training camp. Maybe it's one of those things. But then I see Justin out there throwing 3 touchdowns against Tampa and then 4 against New Orleans. I'm like, oh, okay, like this kid really is something special. And I mean, like I said, you did see some special stuff here and there, his connection with some of these guys, but you just didn't see it to its full potential because there was no preseason games, no joint practice with the Saints like they usually do. So it's just one of those things where, and I remember I tweeted out at the end of the season, these are the records that Justin Herbert broke, and some guy goes, Anthony Lynn was really going to start Tyrod Taylor this whole season if it wasn't for what happened week 2. And that tweet just made me laugh just because I'm like, wow, was Anthony really going to start him all 16 games? I mean, it's just, it's incredible, but kudos to Justin for taking off, and kudos obviously to Pep Hamilton and Shane Steichen for helping Justin develop this year and kind of make the transition. I'm not going to say easy, but help him transition from college football to the NFL.
Yeah. And so I'll wrap it up with this. What I was going to say was the exciting thing about Brandon Staley coming in. And there's just 2 simple examples. We talked all about playing the best player, not mattering what draft position or how much you're getting paid or whatnot. When Brandon Staley was in Denver as the linebackers coach, they signed an undrafted free agent linebacker by the name of Alexander Johnson. I'm sure you guys know him. At the time, they had Brandon Marshall and Todd Davis as their 2 incumbents, both making pretty good money. He went to Vic Fangio, said, Alexander Johnson's my guy. He needs to start. They cut Brandon Marshall. Alexander becomes a starter, has a phenomenal, rookie season. He was older because of off the field stuff, but phenomenal rookie year. Now he's the guy, him and Josie Jewell. In Los Angeles with the Rams last year, they had Taylor Rapp as their incumbent safety. They drafted a guy by the name of Jordan Fuller in the 6th round. He ends up becoming the starter alongside John Johnson. So he is not shy to just say, this guy fits, this guy works with what we want. I don't care where you're drafted. I don't care what you made. So I think that should be really refreshing for Chargers fans. They're like, okay, we're going to roster a team on the field that is going to give us the best chance to win. And it doesn't matter if you were a 1st round pick, 7th round pick, or undrafted. And we'll go from there. So
Ryan is the conductor of the Brandon Staley hype train.
there
you go. You are the conductor. You're the one leading that. You're leading that all around LA.
Yes, some T-shirts being made out for Brian Staley.
No, I wrote an article about head coaching candidates when they were after the Patriots game, and I didn't mention Brandon Staley, and Ryan mentioned it. He texted me when he was editing, and it was like, "Why didn't you mention Brandon Staley?"
You dummy.
No, I should have listened to him, man. I should have. I will always listen to Ryan from now on out because
that's what Gilbert and I were talking about. I just didn't think it was Brian Dable just because that was the clear cut. Everybody was like clear cut favorite. I'm like, these guys don't operate that way. There has to be somebody behind the curtain. It's like the Wizard of Oz. There was somebody behind that curtain, and there was somebody else. It wasn't what we all thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, and he's heard this guy speak, right? Ryan's heard. I mean, as soon as you heard that first press conference, it was like, okay, now I see how this guy came in as a defensive mind, wooed this front office and John Spanos and all those guys and said, hey, listen, like, this is my team. Like, you just have to hear the guy talk for 15 minutes. But for me, what really sold me is hearing Jalen Ramsey talk about him. I mean, Jalen Ramsey, you know, was super quick to be like, hey, with Gus Bradley, we ran the same thing every time. And it was super frustrating, right? So to hear that guy come out and give those commendations, to hear, you know, Emmanuel Acho come out from the Bears, who was like a lesser guy with them, and have him talk about just the relationship he had with Brandon Staley. I mean, you just hear this guy talk. There's no way. I mean, I was a big Nick Sirianni guy. I mean, I would have rather had that press conference. But at the same time, I'm just kidding. I mean, that was terrible. But I mean, like, you just hear this guy talk. I don't know if it's possible to win over more people than what he's done so far in these press conferences. I mean, just the attention to detail he's talked about, the talk about bringing in analytics, where before it was like, hey, we have a guy. Don't worry about that. The analytics is happening. We got a guy. I mean, now you're seeing actual moves to come in and improve those departments of the team and the game management. And Anthony Lynn, I mean, sometimes you have to delegate those things as a head coach, right? You can't do it all by yourself in the flow of a game. I mean, it's hard to come up with the right decision on every short yardage situation, time management situation. And it seems like at least Brandon Staley bringing in a guy like Darius Swinton, who has, you know, experience being a game management type of guy, is at least dedicated to improve a lot of the areas that the Chargers really struggled at. And I think that ability to have those open lines of communication. I mean, Gilbert, Fernando, how many times was communication, you know, a buzzword in post-game press conferences after losses? I mean,
Daniel's trying to get us in trouble, by the way.
No, no. I mean, it wasn't you guys that was saying, yeah. I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. It was you guys asking a very fair question. Is that, oh, well, that was just a lack of communication. You know, don't worry about that. Everything about that. Yeah, don't worry about everything going wrong on the field. It was just a lack of communication. So to see the way this guy communicates, the way this guy teaches, the way this guy wants to lead and get to know these guys, I mean, having all those inputs from all these different coaches, as opposed to having one guy have to bear that on his back and be, you know, the guy in the spotlight when things go wrong, I think is only going to help this team.
Yeah. By the way, in 2 press conferences that we've had with Brandon Staley, we've had 2 hours and 20 minutes. That means my bro Gilbert has had 2 hours and 20 minutes of deciphering everything and transcribing everything that Brandon has said in those press conferences.
They go. So, guys, we could talk all day. Go ahead, Frosty.
I have my last question. So my last question, obviously the first one's a statement. I think it's consensus with all the fellas on this roundtable that the Chargers fans should be pumped up about the signings of all the coaches and especially Brandon Staley. My question is going to go to Daniel, Steven, Fernie, and then Gilbert, just because that's the order you guys are on my screen. So first things first, with Brandon Staley being the head coach of your Chargers, does this now make the Chargers a better team than the Los Angeles Rams?
I think it has to. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, I mean, the Rams are going to reap what they sow. I've already said that once. I mean, they're already going to come up against it with the cap situation. Are they going to be able to replicate that kind of defensive performance when Brandon Staley isn't there? Yes, they have some of the same pieces. You lose Joe Barry, you lose Brandon Staley. When it was Wade Phillips' defense, they were 17th in scoring defense, and they had, you know, arguably better players, or at least thought to be better players that year than they did this last year, where even as Ryan said, they were supposed to take a step back defensively, and they came out as the best defense in the NFL. The Chargers are in place to be a better team than the Rams. They don't have Jalen Ramsey. They don't have Aaron Donald, but they do have Derwin James. They do have Joey Bosa. They do have Kenneth Murray. They have pieces to work with. I think with Justin Herbert, if you can make improvements on the interior of the defensive line, which I think is still a big problem, even with Linval Joseph, who I thought played better than maybe some people thought he did, just because he had to take on so much at his age. I think that the Chargers could easily be a better team than the Rams. I think the Rams' offensive performance is going to be a big uptick than what we saw with Jared Goff. I do think that Matthew Stafford's a pretty big improvement over Jared Goff. And I just think that, I mean, that I like the move in that sense, and I understand it. And I think if the Chargers can take something from the Rams and their general manager and be like, hey, we're going for it. We're going to, spend the capital to go get Orlando Brown Jr. We're going to make some of those win now moves that we've seen from the Rams. Maybe don't go 7 years without a first round pick. But if they take in some of those things that we've seen from the Rams and really go all in on trying to make this team better right now and capitalizing on this window, yes, the depth has to get much better, but I do think that they're in place to be a better team than the Rams eventually.
Damn, Daniel.
Yeah.
He's sharp, isn't it?
For sure.
All right, Steven, let's hear it.
Well, that's the key word, like the one that Daniel ended with is eventually. I'm not there to say
in there. I snuck that in there.
Yeah,
I
was about to say, he was going all in on the Chargers, and I respect it. I'm not there yet, man. The Rams have been to the playoffs 3 out of 4 years. They've been to a Super Bowl. Like, the Chargers have never in my entire life experienced that kind of consistency, except for maybe like a 3-year window when I was in middle school.
06 to 08 maybe would probably be the closest.
Yeah. And so, like, I understand, like, the Chargers unequivocally have a brighter future because of their young core. I mean, Matthew Stafford, I love Matthew Stafford. He is going to be a huge, huge upgrade over Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff could even hold his job over the other guy who I don't even know his name.
John Walker.
Yeah, thank you. So, unequivocally, the Chargers do have a brighter future. But next year, man, the Rams are going to win 11, 12 games again. They're going to be in the playoffs again. They're going to be Super Bowl contenders again. And Matthew Stafford gives them a 2 or 3 year window to win the Super Bowl. And honestly, like, it wouldn't surprise me if they did it. I think the Chargers could make the playoffs next year. I think the Rams are going to be contenders. And that's the difference. The short term for the Rams is right now, they're going to win a lot of games. Matthew Stafford is probably going to win an MVP in the next couple of years. And I think the Rams are probably going to win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. The Chargers in the future, maybe, but I think the Rams are better right now.
Well, let me just start by saying I didn't really let Frosty finish the question and add the Rams at the end. I thought he was just going to say, are they a better team than they were last year? So I had to come up with that kind of on the fly, but I stand by it. I stand by it. You know what I mean? I think I made some good points.
You did. I just think, you know what, like, Matthew Stafford is such a big upgrade over Jared Goff. And I
like the Rams.
I don't ever watch ESPN because it's just a bunch of bull crap right now. But I turned on ESPN yesterday during my lunch break, and Keyshawn Johnson was on there talking about how Jared Goff is better than Matthew Stafford, and that it could just not be further from the truth. I think Stafford in a McVay offense is going to be a top 5 quarterback, and I think he's going to win an MVP, and I think the Rams are going to win a Super Bowl in the next few years.
I don't know if I'd go that far with the Rams winning a Super Bowl, just because I don't know if they can go all the way, just because. I mean, at one point, you have to pay for your sins, right? I mean, not having a first-round draft pick for all these years. And
it's like Daniel said, eventually. Eventually they will have to pay for it.
It's going to be interesting to see what the Rams are able to do. But no, I think the Chargers have the better quarterback out of the two still. But I just don't think I don't think anywhere else the Chargers beat the Rams, to be honest. I feel like the Rams have in every place they have a player that is maybe stronger than, like, at offensive lineman they have Andrew Whitworth, they have some other offensive linemen at every position. They basically have something solidified. I feel like the Chargers are still a couple of years away, not a couple of years, but I feel like this year it's really, they need to build around their base. Like, this is like basically building like an Egyptian pyramid. You have to build your base, and I feel like the Chargers have their base with their, like Gilbert said, their top-heavy guys. Now it's about building off of those guys. I think Marty Schottenheimer said this before. Your backups need to be as good, if not better, than your starters in a sense. Like, there can't be a drop-off. And so that's the thing. Right now, I feel like there's a huge drop-off when Casey Hayward goes out and Brandon Faison comes in, or Tevon Campbell, stuff like that. And I feel like with the Rams, it feels like if one guy goes out, the other guys step up and they are able to play. They're able to play at a higher level. So I feel like the Chargers are still maybe a season away. But I feel like Brandon Staley, if he can build off of what the Chargers already have and really start building on the way up, I feel like the Chargers could end up maybe potentially in the future passing the Rams. But just for right now, I just can't see it. Steven really went out on a limb when he said that Matthew Stafford's going to be an MVP. I mean, honestly, Matthew has all the talent, and they just have never put it all together for him. He's never had a good offensive line. He's never had good running backs. He's never had everything together. And I feel like the Rams are going to put everything together. So, yeah, maybe I feel like they will make the playoffs, but I just feel like the Chargers could be, like you said, a playoff team. I just don't know how Brandon's going to do this, but you know what? I'm going to give you a good toss to my bro, Gilbert. You answer this question and you take us home, brother. You tell us, what do you think?
Okay. So the same question as Frosty. Double questions for me then, Fernando and Frosty. I'll say this. I'm not as high in the Ram as Steven, and I'm definitely not as high in the Chargers as Daniel. Maybe I'm a little close to Fernando range.
You're tepid.
But I never agree with Fernando, but I guess we might be on this one.
Oh, you are.
But I'll say this. Right now, Brandon Staley is all talk. We've never seen him coach in the NFL as a head coach. We've never seen him, be in crunch time and pressure. These one-score games that the Chargers love to play, and like when there's pressure, how's he going to react? We've never seen that. Sean McVay, we've seen stability. He's like you guys mentioned, been to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years, been to the Super Bowl. Has Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. I guess Andrew Whitworth's coming back. So a lot of guys on that team. For the Chargers, you can say the same thing about Joey Bosa, Derwin James, Justin Herbert, but they're never healthy. At this point, I'm starting to believe they're cursed. And until I see this team on the field at the same time, until I see Joey Bosa and Derwin James playing together, I'm not going to buy the hype. I'm tired of buying this hype.
They've only played 12 games together, I think.
And it's been 3-4 years now together, and they can't stay healthy. And I feel like every year, Chargers fans look at the roster and they see Joey Bosa and Keenan Allen and now Justin Herbert, and it looks, really nice, but look deeper. This team has a lot of holes, and they're not ready to. Maybe they are ready to make that step with Brandon Staley, and maybe you need a better coaching staff to bring the best in these players. But we haven't seen Brandon Staley be a head coach yet, so I can't really buy in. And I love the ideas, but what if the ideas are too complicated and the scheme's too complicated and there's too much going around and it doesn't work the first year? You're trying to be like the 49ers, you're trying to be the Packers, you're trying to be the Saints, you're trying to be the Rams. That's a lot going on. Like, can that really work? So I rather, put my money on what I've seen before in Sean McVay and the Rams, but I don't think they're far apart. Just because you have Justin Herbert, like Herbert really, just makes everything better. Like you guys were mentioning the bad offensive line, but Herbert still threw 4,000 yards and broke a lot of records because he's just that good. But you got to protect the guy. You got to get better secondary. You got to get some help for Joey Bosa. And we got to see what Brandon Staley could do. So I think for me, it is the Rams. And maybe I'm the most negative guy here for the Chargers, but I've seen this team too many times to know that they usually don't stay healthy. And I love Derwin James. He's one of as a football fan, I love watching him play. We haven't seen him play in 2 years. Like, is he going to be the same guy when he comes back? It's just kind of hard to assume with this team right now. And we haven't talked about Drew Tranquill at all. If he's healthy, that guy's gonna make that team really good. But again, it's just a lot of what ifs with his team, and I just feel like this year I'm not gonna buy into the hype come around training camp.
All right, well, I have to defend myself. Here. I didn't let Frosty finish the question. I had to, plant my flag and then, make my defense. But I would push back a little bit on something Fernando said, just because I think when you look at the talent, I know it is top heavy, but I think if you go to receiver, Keenan Allen's better than any receiver that the Rams have. And I like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. I think at linebacker, you have Kenneth Murray. I mean, I think potential-wise, I think you like him more than the linebackers and the Rams. At safety, the Chargers get the edge with Derwin James. I think at tight end, if they bring Hunter Henry back, they have the edge at tight end. If they're able to bring Michael Davis back, I think you could even say if Darius Williams leaves the Rams, they would have the edge at corner too. So I do think the pieces are in place. I think that Michael Davis, I'm higher on him than some other people are for sure, but I think he was also clearly the best corner on the Chargers last season. So even though offensive line, I would give that to the Rams. Cam Akers, Austin Eckler, two different type of backs, but I think both of them bring value in different ways. And I also think that the schemes running the football between the Rams and the Chargers couldn't be any more different. I don't think the Chargers have been helping their guys out in that sense, but I just had to stick. I made my point, so I got to come back and at least say something about it because I was the first one that had to go, right?
I'm putting this in the universe, though. I'm putting that in the universe.
It's a good
Super Bowl next year. Why not? At home, Chargers.
So, Ryan, what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I mean, I think right now the Rams are the better team until proven otherwise. I am really, really excited about this Chargers team. I don't need to repeat everything because everyone made the points, but I think they have some good players. I love the coaching staff they put together. But like Gilbert said, until we see it on the field, it's hard to put them above a team that's, been in the playoffs 3 of the 4 years and has their coaching core. I know they lost a lot of coaching staff, but you still have the guy at the top. You still have your offensive coordinator. You still have Austin Cromer, who no one talks about, but their offensive line coach, who I think is one of the best in the game with what he's done to that line, going from 31 to 3 in 1 year. So yeah, the Rams right now are better, but as everyone else mentioned too, no first round picks, you're eventually going to pay for that down the line. And so we could see a shift depending how they do things. But I just love seeing that both these teams in LA are, stepping up, rising up. And I think there's a lot of excitement around Los Angeles football. So for us, they cover both. I think it's a good time to be in LA with football. What about you, Frost? End it with that.
Okay, I'm going to end it with this. I think you have to inspire to be inspired. And I feel like by midway season, the Chargers would be more dominant than the Rams. I feel like if Tom opens up that checkbook and puts some money, and it doesn't mean like all on one person, but spreads it around and builds an O-line through the draft and giving some guys some money that are hungry after you do your due diligence on these guys, on their other rosters, and you talk to their position coaches, not just head coaches, but the guys that work with them every single day and say, yeah, this guy is deserving of $2 or $3 million a year. And you get those guys, it's not $10 million a year. It's not going to kill you, but giving a couple guys $2 or $3 million a year, that sets them up in a lot of ways. Their family's content, and they will go out there and run through a wall, and they're going to block for Justin Herbert, and they're going to get this thing solidified. So I'm thinking as of today, the Rams will be better by mid-season. I'm going Chargers to finish it.
I got it.
Frosty's been pretty on all season, so I put stock in that. So, fellas, I think we could talk all day. I know we've held you already long enough, so thanks. This was fun. I think we got a lot of good stuff out there. Gilbert, where can everyone find you at?
Well, I work for a lot of newspapers, but I'll give you two: Orange County Register and the LA Daily News on on the website, or just I tweet all the time. So follow my Twitter at gmonsanto24, and I post all my stories there.
Perfect, love it, good stuff. Fernando, where can everyone find you at?
Home.
Okay. Where do you live?
Gilbert posts a lot about beers and micheladas and everything. So hey, if you guys like that,
Tacos,
it's a little bit of everything.
Hey, stick to football, bro.
I'm waiting for somebody to tell Pop that about his taco. Daniel
I think
Popper
people
about his
have
taco.
already.
Oh, they have all the time,
really?
man. Popper just ignores them.
Yeah.
You can find me at Real F Ramirez on Twitter. I don't tweet as much as Gilbert does, but no, I don't. I don't tweet all that much, here and there, sporadically, but yeah, no, and I mean, on Instagram, you can find me at Real F Ramirez as well. So again, Ryan, Frosty, thanks for having us on. Well, thank you for having me on. And but yeah,
you can speak for the group. That's fine. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and yeah, check him out. Obviously, great stuff. If you don't already follow him, Steven, what about you? Where can everyone find you?
You can follow me at Stephen I. Haglund on Twitter. Make sure and follow the Guilty as Charged podcast. We are on YouTube as well, doing a lot of good stuff there. And yeah, like Fernando said, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And Steven, obviously, as I mentioned, writes for the LA Football Network, so great articles on your Chargers there as well. And last but certainly not least, Dan Wade, where can everyone find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Dan Talk Sports. You can also find the Locked On Chargers podcast at Locked On LAC. Same handle on Instagram as well. Daily podcast, 30 minutes ish a day. And I would say I'm happy to have everyone on here today. It's fun having this roundtable with you guys, man. A lot of different outlooks. And I think, that's all you can really ask for is, getting a bunch of different opinions. And we might not all agree on everything, but I do think there was a good discussion here today. And I think, if they listen to us, it could be a pretty good team.
Yeah.
A pretty good squad over here.
Yeah, hopefully
there's a
13,
reason
baby.
There's a reason why we're here and they're there, though.
Yes. But hopefully the Chargers will be taking that discussion approach into doing things. So, but yeah, follow Dan, also writes for the LA Football Network, great writer as well. So, fellas, appreciate all of you. I think we'll do this again throughout the off season if you're willing, because this was fun and great stuff. And like I said, I think there's plenty more to talk about, and we'll touch base again once free agency hits in March. So be healthy, be safe. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk soon. Okay. All right. That was fun. Always good getting all that insight.
Yeah, man. Always good. And then, these guys are really close to the program. So I know they're really insightful. They know what's going on. New coaching staff coming in, tons of stuff to talk about. Draft coming up. free agency coming up. We're going to be busy, but great to have that roundtable with such insightful gentlemen. Yeah,
always fun. We've gotten to know them over the last year or so, and so became good friends with them. And as you mentioned, they're close to the team and very knowledgeable. And since we cover a wide variety, it helps to have a little more honed in perspective. But I think we know what we're talking about too. So it's a fun offseason for all of our LA football teams. And I mentioned it in that end that I think it's just an exciting time to be in LA with football, and we'll see what transpires once the new league year actually begins on March 15th. So that gives us still about a month to speculate and predict and analyze and guess what may happen. And in a month, we'll actually see what goes down.
Inform perspectives. Word of the episode.
Word of the episode. Form perspectives. All right, Frost. All right, fans. Thank you for listening to the LA Football Podcast. Frost will say it every time. They should know by now, but where can everyone find you at?
I'm at The Organic Frost, and that's on Twitter and Instagram, and I think that's about it.
There you go. You can find me at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB, just Ryan Dyrud on Instagram, Ryan Dyrud, LAFB on Twitter. Our main account, LAFB Network, is everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. We're trying to get that up. Going to be putting out more content. Obviously, every episode is up there, but also going to be doing some film breakdown. I finally got my my Game Pass account, so we'll be locking in some all 22 and breaking it down. So it should be fun stuff. So Frost, preachers as always, thanks for jumping on and giving your insight and talking football, and hope you have a very blessed day and weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Always. So thank you all for listening. Enjoy the weekend. Hit us up. We'd love to talk football with you, and we'll talk again here in a few days.